African Tales by Bibe.
Part 2. Kelechi's eyes got bigger. What? My brother. Some women can be something else. I'm just disgusted. Kelechi patted his shoulder encouragingly. It will pass, it will pass. Thank God you are alive. If I had died, her major concern would have been property. You can see that. Do my brother staying abroad, my sister and my mother look like they give a damn about cars, about houses? Why should that be her major concern? Man, be strong. You'll pull through. Don't think too much about it, Kelechi told him with a deep breath. Chika came downstairs and saw her mother-in-law and Kelechi's wife talking in low tones. What are you two discussing in such low tones? She asked them with a fake smile. Mama is telling me how George is coping, explained Ugonma, Kelechi's wife. Oh, we shouldn't dwell on it. George will be fine, Chika said. Amen, Ugonma chorused. Have you had anything? Let me get you a drink, Chika said, heading to the kitchen. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Grace and her daughter Ngozi were busy. Chika came in at this time. Is the soup done, Madam Grace? She asked, looking around. We're on it. Ngozi is taking care of the okazi leaves. It will soon be ready, Grace told her. All right, George must be hungry by now, Chika went on. He needs to have his lunch soon so he can take his drugs. He has already taken his afternoon drugs, Ma, Ngozi told her quietly. So what did he eat? Chika asked. Grandma gave him the remnant of the rice we had in the morning, Ngozi explained. All right, Chika said. Well, make the soup so he can have it in the evening. Also, Ngozi, serve Kelechi's wife some wine and cookies. She's in the living room with Mom. All right, Ma, Ngozi said, and wiped her hands with a cloth. While Ngozi served Ugonma some wine, Chika returned upstairs. Shortly after, George's twins ran downstairs and headed to their father's room. The atmosphere changed immediately. George and Kelechi abandoned their discussion. The children chatted and climbed onto the bed, joining their father. I hope your therapist is good, Kelechi asked him in between the children's chatters. Yes, there too. They come thrice a week, and I do the rest of the exercises myself. I'm coping. I have no option. I wouldn't want my knees to lock, so I'm exercising as regularly as possible, George explained. Don't you think you may need a caregiver that would be here every day and help you through the practice so you don't get too exhausted? Kelechi suggested. George shook his head. No, I can handle this. Yes, you can, but it will take a longer time. George let out a deep breath and shook his head. Let me push through by myself. My sister helps me when she comes home from work. Okay, if you say so, his friend said. When the children left the room, Kelechi and George discussed business. Kelechi gave him more updates on their vessels, and George confirmed some of the emails he had received from him and some other important facts. The company staff is worried about you, Kelechi told him suddenly. Oh, I believe I'll be with them soon, George said with a faint smile. Later, Kelechi and his wife took their leave. That evening, George practiced as much as he could, and when he got exhausted, he paused. Chika came in at that moment. George was wiping his face with a towel when she came in. Do you need anything, honey? She asked, moving towards him. George gazed at her with thoughtful eyes. Then he shook his head. No, thank you. His voice was calm. George, about the cars, she began anxiously. He raised his eyebrows. I wasn't thinking straight. I'm sorry. He stared at her without betraying any emotions. Chika, leave my room. I've heard you. George, she pleaded, leave. His voice was still calm. Chika turned and walked away, cringing her face. George swallowed hard. He was really doing his best not to react furiously towards his wife. She had fallen to nothing in his eyes, and he wondered if anything could mend their broken relationship. How could he be blind all these years? Their marriage was 12 years old. Although Chika could be selfish at times, but he hadn't noticed she loved him for his money or affluence. He decided to run a cold bath. 1 month later, George's wife took their children to visit their maternal grandmother at the weekend, but failed to return home after the weekend elapsed. George dialed her number on Monday morning when he didn't hear from her and her line went to voicemail. What is happening? What game is Chika playing? George muttered as he tried her line again. No way! He quickly dialed his mother-in-law's number and she answered immediately. Good morning, Ma. George greeted her. Good morning, George. How are you today? I'm okay. Is Chica with you? She was supposed to come home yesterday with the kids. They left yesterday evening, the woman said. What? They're not home. Throughout yesterday evening, her phone line was unreachable. I thought maybe they would come in early this morning. What is happening? This is serious. Chica was behaving somehow yesterday. I asked her what the problem was, but she didn't say. Are you guys having problems? Ma, I'll talk to you later. I'll find out what Chica is up to. He hung up. George stared into thin air. Where did Chica take my kids to? George called Chica's brother, Chucks. He didn't answer the call until the 5th ring. What the hell is your sister up to? I know 2 of you work together, George spoke tersely. George, I didn't plan anything with Chica, Chuck said anxiously. She called me 1 hour ago with another number saying she had boarded a flight to the US with your kids. But I swear... To the US? To the US with my children? George was almost choking. He cut the call and stared into thin air. A wave of dizziness came over him. He clenched his fists, staring at the ceiling. Then he yelled in fury. Chica! Few minutes later, his mother and sister hurried into the room. What happened, brother? Are you feeling pain? Mary asked, running to him. Chica, she took my kids to the US. She took my kids away, he gasped, covering his eyes. Good heavens, his mother cried. George, hold yourself together. Your kids will come back, she told him, moving to him. George sat up. What did I do to Chica? Why is she acting this way? What did I not give her? He was visibly hurt. Just because I'm paralyzed, she decided I'm no longer good for her? It's good she has shown you her true colors, his mother said with a pout. I'm not surprised. Why did she leave? Why take my kids with her? She's a joker. The truth is she couldn't stay with you anymore because of what she did. The guilt is heavier for her when she stays around you, Mary analyzed. Yet she took the kids, probably to spite you and us. She can't keep my kids away from me. They can't grow away from me. George gritted his teeth, clenching his hands. Mary sighed, shaking her head. For the next 1 week, nobody heard from Chica. She went mum. The news spread to the whole vicinity and to their business associates. The staff whispered it, wondering what could be the problem. Kelechi and his wife worked hard to see if they could get Chica to respond to them. All avenues proved futile. George knew that funding her movement to the US involved money, but it wasn't so much money that she couldn't afford it. But then, what about her supermarket? George found out that Chica had sold her supermarket, the supermarket he had established for her 6 years ago when he found out she wasn't interested in joining him in his shipping company. One afternoon, George's mobile phone rang. He looked at it. It was a US number. He answered the call. Daddy, it's me, Nini, an urgent voice said. It was his daughter. Nini, where are you? George sat up in his wheelchair. Dad, we're with Mummy in the US. Which state? Before Nene could speak, the phone call abruptly ended. Chica, George growled with anger. She's stopping the kids from reaching me? God. George buried his face in his palms, praying for self-control. He checked out the number that called him and found out the call code was from Chicago. He thought as much. Chica's younger sister, Vivian, lived in Chicago with her family. She must be with her sister. But he had called Vivian several times, and she denied knowing where Chica was in the US. They're all lying bastards, he thought with clenched fists, all because he became paralyzed. No problem, he thought. Chica is playing with fire. The next day, he received another call from the same number. When he answered, it was his wife on the line. George, it's me, she said. Chica, what the hell is going on? George, I couldn't stay. I couldn't handle the crisis, she said blandly. What crisis? That I'm paralyzed? That you were more concerned about material things than me surviving and getting back on my feet? Tell me, what crisis? I can't cope with the whole situation. Bring back my kids, else you'll get it hot from me. I won't, George, I won't. They'll stay with me, Chica said matter-of-factly. You're joker, George told her with controlled anger. Don't contact us for some time. We need to settle down. Chica, The line went dead. He stared at his phone in astonishment. He felt the urge to get up, but his limbs failed him. No! He growled in anger, his heart heaving up and down. Chica had gone too far. She had gone too far. Tears filled his eyes, and he bent low and cried, God, what wrong did I do to this woman? In another part of Lagos, a woman called Olaedo sat in the office of the Dean of Humanities at a university in Lagos State. She sat on the edge of her seat, her eyes alert. A middle-aged man, Mr. Bab, sat in front of her, his eyes fixed on the beautiful woman before her. Sir, I came to know if there's any update on my application. I know the bureaucracy here is too much. I applied to be a junior lecturer here. Nothing came out of it. Mr. Uma gave me your contact information, if you remember. That's why I came to you. This is 3 weeks you asked me to come back, Olaedo told him. Ah, I remember you clearly. And I told you, you have to do something for me, and you'll secure this job by next week. All applicants for this faculty must get approved at my desk, Mr. Babs told her, sitting back with a smile. Olaedo shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her heart racing. What does this mean? This is the 3rd time I'm being asked for sex to get a job. I will leave this job hunting you. If I had enough capital, I would have just started a business. What sort of rubbish is this? Do I look like I would give my body to get a job? She thought, staring at the man. Sir, please, go straight to the point, she told him with a fake smile. Mr. Babs laughed heartily, leaning forward. I like you a lot. You're a beauty with brains. I've seen your grades. Just spend 2 nights with me and you're good to go, he told her, leaning back. 2 nights? Not even once. That means you will finish me, sir, Olaedo said with a forced laugh when she felt like punching the man's face. The man laughed again, opening his drawer. I won't finish you, but you'll enjoy me and I'll enjoy you. Oh, sir, I will go and think about it, she said, getting to her feet. As you wish. Once you agree, let me know. You can have this job and improve your life. You can see how Nigeria is. You're a smart woman, Mr. Babs told her, smiling. Idiot, Olaedo muttered. What did you say? He asked. Olaedo smiled. I said, thank you, she told him, walking towards the door. All right, I'll be expecting your message. Expect fire, she muttered and yanked the door open. Olaedo stood along the corridor with officers on both sides and heaved a sigh. She was getting tired of this job hunting. An hour later, Olaedo met with her friend, Mercy, at a local restaurant. What's up, Olaedo? What did the man say? Mercy asked with wide eyes. The man asked me to sleep with him to guarantee my employment. Olaedo pouted. Woo! Again, what is all this, nah? It's like the nuts in his head had loosened, Mercy frowned. My sister, you can see that. I don't know why I keep attracting these wolves. Did I get my certificate with my body? Didn't I study hard and get my grades clean? Olaedo pouted heavily. I'm lucky. My boss at the cement factory is not like that, Mercy intoned. He doesn't harass any of the staff and nobody is given a job based on sex or money. Everything is on merit. Thank God for you, Olaedo sighed with a smile. I don't know if the devil enters them when they see me, she lamented. Don't say that, her friend admonished. You'll get a good job on merit, Mercy encouraged her. I would have just started a business if I had some good capital, like a bakery since I'm a baker too, Olaedo went on. Capital is usually the problem when you're coming from nothing, Mercy agreed. Olaedo's phone rang and she answered the call. You see, how far? Sis, I have 2,000 naira with me. Do you have some money so I can add it to what I have and go to the market? So we can cook something, her brother UC said. I have only 5,000 naira left. Wait, let me send it to your account. Just manage it and buy soup items and Gary. I'll be home soon. All right, sis, UC responded. Are you done with your training for today? Yes, we are closed for today, UC replied. Okay. Olaedo ended the call and pursed her lips. She opened her bank app on her phone and sent some money to her brother. So, what are you going to do now? Mercy asked as she signaled a waitress to bring them food. If not for the writing tasks I get online, I don't know how we would be surviving, but the truth is the pay is not much. $10 per script is just for us to eat. And mind you, I'm not getting jobs every day yet. Mercy, I'm exhausted, Olaedo sighed. Don't worry, let's eat first. Your brain will work better after you eat, Mercy said, laughing as the waitress brought a tray of 2 plates of rice. Olaedo laughed too, taking a deep breath. Next outing, I'll treat you to a nice meal. Thanks for this, she told her friend as the waitress placed one of the plates of food before her. When they were done with eating, Mercy took her leave as she wanted to see someone. All right, I'll stay here for a while and clear my head small, she told her friend as she left. Olaedo sat back in her seat, staring at the ceiling. "Are you okay?" a male voice asked. Olaedo sat up and looked at the man. He was in his 30s, good-looking, and looked well off. I'm fine, she replied as she adjusted in her seat. "Can I buy you something?" "A meal or something?" the guy asked. "I'm Alozi, by the way." "Oh, that's nice. I'm Olaedo," she told him with a smile. "But don't bother, I've already eaten." "You can take it home," Alozi prompted. Olaedo smiled and shook her head. "No thanks." "Okay." The man shrugged and pulled out the chair opposite Olaedo. He sat down. Olaedo started checking her phone. Then she began to hear the conversation between two women close to her table. The two women were in their early 60s. "I really need someone good and reliable. A woman who is smart, hard-working, and follows instructions. All the caregivers I hired couldn't stay. George scared them with harsh words and they quit," one of the women said. "Oh, George is being stubborn. Doesn't he want to recover from this paralysis? But the therapists still come." "Yes, they still come 3 times a week to check his progress. He has progressed only very little. He exercises by himself, but if someone helps him regularly, he might regain life in his legs. But he doesn't see it from that angle," the woman sighed. "In that case, I'll look for someone," the other woman said. "We won't give up on him. Oh, my poor George. Please find me someone who is educated and good-mannered. She will study the therapy guide and watch videos so she will understand what to do." "How much are you ready to pay the caregiver?" Olaedo's ears pricked up as she slowly leaned towards the women. 200,000 a month. If only George won't scare her off like the rest, the woman said hopefully. Olaedo's heart began to pound. "She can do this work, can't she?" Alozi was watching her curiously. His food was brought at that moment, but he continued to gaze at Olaedo. Olaedo stood up and walked straight to the women. "Good evening, Ma," she greeted them with a smile. "I'm sorry, I overheard your conversation. I'd like to take the job," she said quickly. George's mother looked at the young woman in front of her, assessing her. The woman was beautiful, her natural hair an afro. George's mother wondered if she would be able to stand George. "Have you worked as a caregiver before?" she asked her. I took care of Grandma when she was bedridden for 3 months, Olaedo replied. "What course did you study in the university?" "English and literature. But Ma, I am very strong and capable. I will treat the patient very well and help him carry out his routines," she said anxiously. George's mother and her friend, Mrs. Oho, looked at each other. "Bring your seat closer. You need to know the details of the work before we can agree," George's mother told Olaedo. Without delay, Olaedo pulled her chair closer to their table and sat down. Hours later, Olaedo arrived home and greeted her father, Mr. Okoro, with open arms. She exuded joy. Her father was elderly, in his early 70s. "Dad, I got a good job," she laughed. "Really?" Her father hugged her back, laughing too. He was seated in their modest living room. "What type of job? The lecturing job you've been working on?" "No, Dad," Olaedo said, and flung herself on one of the cushioned seats. Her brother UC came in at this time, and they greeted each other. Olaedo explained to them the nature of the job and how much she will be paid, but their excitement reduced. "Caregiver jobs are strenuous. I think you know my child?" Mr. Okoro asked with concern. "Dad, I'm equal to the task. The man is not bedridden. He uses a wheelchair. I'll just be helping him in his routine exercises to help bring back life to his legs. That's all," she explained. "But I'll only come home on the weekends. It's a live-in job," she added hastily. "Oh, no, her father said, shaking his head. "Dad," she began, pursing her lips. "Look, I know we need money, and because of my health, you're pressured to work harder. But your elder sister is sending my medication, so you don't have to put yourself in any uncomfortable job," he told her seriously. "Dad, I can't continue to hunt for jobs for months without success. And I really need a break from my online jobs. They're burning me out as it stands now. This job is more of physical tasks than brain work," she told him. "I don't like the idea of living in their house. You don't know them," he insisted. Olaedo closed her eyes. She understood her father's fears. She looked at her brother with a grimace. "Dad, what if Olaedo invites her boss to our house so you'll see her yourself? That way, you'll feel better." Their father looked at his daughter and thought about it for a while. "Okay, invite her. You can't just go there without us knowing where you're working, he said finally. Okay, Dad, I will do so at once, she told him, smiling at Yusi. Olaedo pulled out her phone and dialed Mrs. Umez's number. The call was answered immediately. Hello, Ma, please. I'm having difficulty convincing my dad about the job. Can you come to our house and talk to him? Okay, send me your location, George's mother agreed. The next day, around 9 o'clock in the morning, George's mother arrived at Olaedo's flat. Olaedo received her and ushered her into their living room. George's mother introduced herself to Olaedo's father and assured him that his daughter was going to work in a safe place. She dropped her home address to him and told him he was free to visit his daughter any time and that Olaedo would be free at the weekends. Once you reach, let me know, his father said finally. All right, Dad, Olaedo said with relief and hugged him. Then she turned to Yusi, who was also present in the meeting. Take good care of Dad, Yusi. I'll be back on Saturday. All right, Yusi replied, hugging his sister. Yusi was a 24-year-old who was undergoing training at a car mechanic shed. He dreamed of having his own garage in the future. Are you ready? Mrs. Umez asked Olaedo. Yes, Ma, I'll get my bag. Soon, Olaedo entered the Lexus Jeep with George's mother and the driver drove off. The ride to Palm Estate was quiet. Minutes later, they arrived at a nice duplex in a large compound. As the gate was opened by a security guard, Olaedo noticed two other security guards positioned at different points in the compound. God help me with this job. While the man has scared off others, he will not scare me off no matter what, she thought as the car came to a halt. George was going through some mail on his laptop when he glanced at the monitor of the CCTV covering the entrance of his compound. Someone was with his mother in the car. A woman. Who was that? He furrowed his brows as the car came to a halt in front of the house. He watched as a woman came down from the front seat carrying a small travel bag. What the hell? He muttered. His mother came down from the vehicle and motioned the woman to come along. George closed his eyes, rubbing them with his fingers. What was his mother doing again? Why won't this woman listen? Olaedo followed Mrs. Umez into the house, looking round the exotic living room. She took a deep breath, almost getting intimidated by the grandeur of her surroundings. They even had sunflowers in their garden, she thought, as she remembered the sunflowers outside. George's mother took Olaedo to the kitchen, where Grace and Ngozi were preparing lunch. The aroma of goat meat filled her nostrils. Grace, Ngozi, this is Olaedo, the new caregiver. Olaedo, Grace, our housekeeper, and her daughter, Ngozi. George's mother introduced them. Good morning, Ma. Olaedo greeted Grace with a smile. She smiled at Ngozi too. Good morning, Olaedo. What a beautiful name, Grace added. Olaedo smiled at her. Ngozi, take her to the guest room. She will drop her bags. Then she will go see George. I don't want to go in first, George's mother said. All right, Ma, Ngozi said, and dried her hands with a cloth. Come with me, she told Olaedo. Olaedo followed her. Ngozi led her to a room on the ground floor. It was spacious and well furnished. Make yourself comfortable. Drop your bag, then you can go and introduce yourself to the boss, Ngozi told him with speculative eyes. Olaedo nodded and dropped her travel bag on the bed. I hope you'll stay. Ngozi looked at her in anticipation. Of course, I'll stay, she told her. Okay, good. Go, Ngozi motioned her. But why doesn't Mama want to introduce me to him? Olaedo wondered aloud. That's because they have argued several times about getting him a caregiver. He doesn't want one, but his mother insists so he can recover faster, Ngozi explained. Oh, okay. Olaedo nodded, licking her lips as apprehension gripped her suddenly. Ngozi led her to the room next to hers and nodded. Go. Olaedo nodded and forced a smile. Ngozi hurried away. Olaedo got her phone and dialed her dad's number. Her father was relieved to hear that she was okay. She promised to call him later in the day. She put her phone back into her jeans. Olaedo knocked on the door of the room. She didn't hear any response. She turned the doorknob and pushed the door open. She walked in. Olaedo felt she was swallowed into another world. The room was well lit and quite large. The bed was well made like no one had slept on it. The curtains were all drawn. Then her gaze rested on the man in a wheelchair. She stared. He was dark in complexion, he was handsome with a nice beard. He seemed a tall man, judging from his height while seated. He had a strong jawline, and his eyes were cold as he gazed at her, his brows furrowed. "Who are you? What are you doing in my house?" The voice was deep, quiet, and cold. Olaedo shivered and gathered herself together. She moved a little closer. "Good morning, sir. I'm Olaedo. Your mom hired me as your caregiver," she said, with a little tremor in her voice. "As my what?" His voice was cold. Their eyes met briefly. His was steely, hers were anxious. "Your caregiver." Her voice broke a little. "I didn't authorize your employment. Leave my house. Go." His voice was brutal to her senses. Olaedo felt hurt, but she stood her ground, looking away. "Ngozi!" George's voice boomed. The door swung open almost immediately and a frightened Ngozi came in. "Sir?" She answered breathlessly. "Where's Mom?" George's face was now a mask of controlled anger. "She's in the living room. Show this woman out of my house and call my mother immediately." He didn't look at Olaedo as he spoke. Olaedo felt jabbed again, but she swallowed it. Ngozi looked at Olaedo with sorry eyes. Oledo's eyes darkened with determination. "With all due respect, sir, I'm not leaving this job. I'm told your therapists will be here in 30 minutes' time. I'll be here to take instructions from them. Be ready." Her voice was calm. George looked at her this time, their eyes locking. His eyes were unreadable. Her eyes were stubborn. Then Olaedo turned to Ngozi. "Let's go, Ngozi." Ngozi glanced at her boss briefly and hurried after Olaedo, who had already reached the door. Ngozi closed the door and both of them let out a deep breath. "Sis, you got him, Ngozi breathed. "You're not leaving, right?" she whispered. Olaedo shook her head. "No, I'm not," she whispered back. "I need this job, and he needs help. Why is he so stubborn? He's angry at everything. Come, let's go before he hears us," Ngozi said, hurrying towards the kitchen. Olaedo reported to George's mother in the living room. "How did it go?" she asked anxiously. "Not so bad," Olaedo said with a smile. Olaedo narrated what happened to George's mother. Good. Don't let his harsh words get to you. His physiotherapists will be here soon. They will give you guidelines for the work." "Okay, Ma, I will do my best," Olaedo promised. Please hit the like button for this video, subscribe and tell us your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. Let's head to part 3. Click the link in the comments to watch part 3.